remember the story of Isaac and his father Abraham? Genesis 22. As they journeyed, it occurred to Isaac that they did not have an animal to sacrifice. They carried firewood, and they also had a matchbox, or whichever means of creating a spark that they used those days. As I said earlier, Isaac also agrees wood enough is not enough. Wood alone. What did I say? I meant alone. Thank you for helping me. But now we are realizing that fire also is not enough. We must have a lamb, we must have a bull, we must have a chicken, we must have something that is alive, that must feel pain, and that must provide a sacrifice. Abraham says God will provide for himself a sacrifice, and indeed in this case, in fact, many people see in this declaration of Abraham a prophecy of the Lamb of God who would one day take away our sin. But in another sense, and here is where you come, it was Abraham who provided the lamb. It was he who had to find a way of either hiding the information about killing his son from the mother of the teenager, or somehow being able to either convince or not tell her what's going on. It was Abraham who had to spend a sleepless night thinking about this trip. It was Abraham who had to look for a pious way to answer the son, lest he runs away on the way. It was Abraham who had to either tie the boy or convince him to accept to be the sacrifice. Many scholars would believe that this was a grown-up young man. Some would say an older teenager. I saw one author who says he was about 27 years old. Actually, it was Josephus, the historian, who thinks he was 27. At any rate, he was young and strong, and it would have been very hard for Abraham to force him into this deal. Therefore, it was Isaac and Abraham that provided a lamb. Paul, writing in Romans 12 verse 1, says, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in the view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. There is a saying that is attributed to the church father Tertullian in a book called Apologeticus that goes like this: the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. You see, ministries and our Christian faith thrives on a lamb that was provided somewhere. Our salvation is founded on one who was willing to be the Lamb of God. When John saw him in John chapter 1 verse 29, he said, behold the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world. God and the fire, God and the wood, but there had to be a lamb, and Jesus provided it, and today we are born again. It is because Paul became a sacrifice that we have about 13 or 14 epistles of the New Testament, about a third of the entire book. Our cardinal doctrines are derived from these books. It comes out of the sacrifice of St. Paul. Our faith is resting on a man's loneliness. It is resting on somebody who did not take a wife. At one point he was so frustrated, he even wrote it in the Bible. 1 Corinthians 9 verse 5, he says, don't I have the right to follow the example of the other apostles and the Lord's brothers and Peter by taking a Christian wife with me on my trips? It's a Good News translation. He did not get a wife. That nights of loneliness and having no helper and companion, it is based on that sacrifice that we have the doctrine like justification by faith. We hear of souls getting saved in our mission stations. Those souls are being based on the sacrifice of pastors and pastors' wives who left their careers. And then we can celebrate. This ministry itself is planted on those who labored. It stands on the sweat, the blood, the tears of those who went before us. The worship we enjoy here today is from sacrifice, from somebody who provided a lamb. The foundation on which we have that powerful ministry is growing on the fertilizer of a group of people that meet here twice a week. While you are continuing with your business, some with their children, for they have no place to leave them. The breakthrough we are experiencing in this church, in our families, it is coming from the sleepless nights of people who pray. Seasons of fasting and travail from our intercessors. Wood alone will not do. You have already enjoyed the produce of those who have sacrificed. It is time that we also benefited in some way from you as a lamb for the sacrifice.